Hi there, this is Daniel coming to you again from the Audubon Center for Birds of Prey. Today we want to talk to you a little bit about flight and how exactly our birds are able to accomplish flight. For any object to fly, there's actually four things at play. Any object has to deal with thrust, has to deal with drag, lift, and the weight of that object itself. You can think of it as like a chart. So you have your thrust and your drag and your lift and your weight. For a plane to be able to actually get off the ground, it uses giant jet engines to be able to overcome its weight, and the wings are shaped in a way that helps it to generate that thrust to get it up in the air. It's why you don't see semi-trucks and cars taking off on the highway. For birds, since they've had millions of years of evolution and adaptation to be able to fly, they have a lot of advantages of this. First and foremost, they actually have a hollow bone structure. This keeps them as lightweight as possible so they can get off of the ground. To put it into perspective, a bunch of our birds will weigh about half of their weight in feathers versus their entire body weight. And feathers are the other thing that helps birds to fly. They're very flexible and very strong, and we're going to go into more detail about feathers at a later date, so stay tuned for that video. So for birds to be able to get off of the ground, they have to achieve that lift that lets them propel themselves upwards. And for birds to do that, they have an enlarged keel that has muscle attachment sites for those chest muscles. So for these birds to be able to fly, they'll be flapping their wings very strongly to get off of the ground and generate that lift. Keeping them lightweight with those hollow bones helps them to achieve this feat. Thrust is the force of an object going in a forward motion, and drag is that object's resistance to the thrust. Birds, along with a lot of vehicles, have a very angular shape to help them cut through the wind and the atmosphere, so they reduce the drag, increasing their thrust. As you watch this video of one of our resident eagles, Trouble, flying in slow motion, observe how he uses his wings to both take him off of the perch and to slow his descent as he lands on the next perch. When they're in the air, they don't want to constantly flap all the time. Some birds will actually take advantage of thermals, which are going to be hot air columns that lets them patrol an area. Vultures are the most famous example of this. If you've ever been outside, you've seen vultures all circling around an area, checking out to see if there's any food around. Some birds have even been able to achieve hovering by using both their chest muscles for that thrust and taking advantage of wind currents to let them stay in place. Some really famous examples of this are hummingbirds and even osprey that'll hover in place and peer down below into the water to look for food. And then once they find a fish, they'll dive straight down, feet first, to actually be able to nab that fish. One of the most famous flying birds in the world is the albatross. With the largest wingspan of over 11 feet, depending on the species, they have achieved such incredible flight utilizing two different ways of gliding. They have dynamic gliding, where they'll fly into a gust of wind and do a dynamic maneuver, allowing them to generate lift off of that gust. They also have slope soaring, where they will fly right around the crashing waves, and the wind generated from the waves helps them to glide. For about every 3 feet that an albatross drops while gliding, they'll actually have a forward thrust of 66 feet. Thank you very much for joining us for this Lunch and Learn. We hope you guys stay safe and look forward to seeing more of our videos.